Rachel Weisz furious with Daniel Craig and walks out of press conference for final 007 project. Flashbulbs were blaring as Rachel Weisz entered the press room at the Dorchester H Hotel in London, where Daniel Craig's final James Bond project was being announced. In a low-cut, high-necked black gown, she commanded as much attention as any Oscar star in the room. But behind the calm gaze and forced smile, Rachel was seething. She wasn't the female lead in this 007 film, something Daniel had told her weeks ago, after months of discussion. But what she couldn't bear wasn't the rejection. It was the cold way Daniel, her husband, who had once declared his love for her beyond the limelight, had told her, "Rachel, you're too familiar. This part needs someone new." She had heard Daniel talk about character, breakthrough, and other vague concepts, but she had never imagined they would be used as an excuse to keep her out of the biggest opportunity of her career. Rachel remembered Daniel walking into the kitchen, script in hand. He had sat down at the table, his eyes avoiding hers. "You're not cast," he sighed softly. "What?" She laughed, thinking he was joking. "What are you talking about?" "The female lead. I'm not cast. The studio wants a new face." "The studio?" Her voice began to sharpen. "Or is it you?" Daniel didn't answer. And that was when she understood, it was him who had objected to her taking the lead role. Not the studio. Not the director. It was Daniel Craig himself, her husband. Rachel Weisz, an Oscar winner who starred in classics like The Constant Gardener and The Favorite comma was dropped from her husband's film. She didn't need the role to make her famous, but being rejected by someone she loved cut deeper than any showbiz wound she'd ever had. The splash in the press, the microphone shook lightly as Daniel Craig leaned into speak. He had just finished his statement about the iconic nature of James Bond when the door to the press room opened, and Rachel walked in. The eyes of the entire press room turned to her like a tidal wave. A few murmurs arose. No one had expected her to appear here, especially since the official list that had been distributed this morning had not included Rachel in the cast or production team. Daniel looked up, startled for a split second. His smile was a little strained as he saw his wife make her way to the front row, the place reserved for the guests of honor. She did not look at him. The host, a representative from MGM, tried to regain his composure. "We're delighted to announce the final 007, young French actress Sylvie Lemoine." Applause broke out, interspersed with a few snaps of photos. Sylvie stepped out, radiant in a white off-the-shoulder dress, boutiquely eerily embarrassed. Her eyes glanced at Rachel, then immediately turned away. At that moment, Rachel stood up. Without a warning, without a word. The rustle of her silk skirt as she turned, striding out the front door, her eyes as cold as the London winter wind. Her every step echoed in the tense air. Daniel tried to keep his composure, but his fingers clenched under the table, knuckles standing out. A female reporter quickly jumped up. "Rachel, can you share your thoughts?" Rachel paused for a full second. She turned her head, looked straight into the camera streaming across the globe, and said in a clear, unadulterated voice, "I don't think there's anything worse than being betrayed by the person you trust the most." There are roles you'd give to someone else. But there are roles that no one should ever take away from you, especially not someone you've slept with every night. She left, leaving behind a deadly silence. Daniel Craig sat there, his face ashen. The reporteress exploded, their flashbulbs going off like fireworks. Less than 30 minutes later, #Rachel Weisz, #Bond Drama, and #Craig Betrayal were all trending worldwide on X, formerly Twitter. The storm behind the scenes. A few hours after the press conference, the Dorchester Hotel, once a gathering place for international media, was now a battlefield. Daniel Craig's assistants tried to block the press from his private room. The windows on the 7th floor where he was sheltering were closed, but no one could shut out the storm raging outside. Daniel sat alone, his shirt untucked, his whiskey still on the table. He played the video of Rachel speaking live on air, for the 17th time. There's nothing worse than being betrayed by the person you trust the most. Each word rang out like a knife. Not only was the media in an uproar, but social media, the film community, and 007 fans were also exploding. Rachel Weisz, a quiet, elegant woman who had been virtually immune to scandal throughout her nearly 30-year career, was now the main headline. She didn't give interviews. She didn't post anything online. But her actions were enough to make everyone wonder what was really going on between two of Britain's golden stars. Meanwhile, at Rachel's Chelsea apartment. She had been home for less than an hour when her phone started ringing non-stop. Calls came from everywhere: directors, former co-stars, the media, even people whose faces she couldn't remember. Rachel didn't answer. She locked the phone, poured herself a glass of red wine, and sat down on the wooden floor by the window. Her mind was like a stretched canvas, a tangle of emotions: hurt, anger, emptiness. Not because she had lost the role. But because she realized that Daniel, who had promised to always see her no matter how much the world changed, was now like the rest of Hollywood, choosing the market over understanding and trust. Rachel had turned down several big projects in the past year, partly for family reasons, partly because she was waiting for her chance with Daniel, in the final Bond film. She had thought that this role would not only be the perfect artistic combination, but also the way for T-Hem to mark their journey toward ether, a worthy cinematic ending. But Daniel had quietly removed her from all plans. Not fighting for her. Not protecting her. Three days later, a private meeting. In a penthouse in Soho, Daniel and Rachel finally came face to face after the media explosion. No press. No agents. Just the two of them and 2 cups of hot tea in a space colder than ever. Daniel was the first to speak. I didn't think it would turn out like TS. No? Rachel raised her head, her voice soft but sharp. You let me be humiliated in front of the world, Daniel. What do you want? A thank you for not saying my name in public? Rachel, that role isn't right for you. You know that. You're... what? Old? No longer sexy? Not fresh enough? Not the stereotypical Bond girl? Her voice broke, losing her composure. Who are you to decide that? Daniel was silent. She stood up, walked out onto the balcony, and looked down at the bustling night street below. You said I was the person you respect most in the business. And yet at the last minute, you didn't even ask me if I wanted to try. What are you afraid of? Afraid that I'll overshadow you on the final screen? Daniel came to her side, touching her shoulder lightly. I'm afraid of losing you. Rachel turned her head, her eyes heavy. Then you just did it.